Apple released the new iPhone 5s and the specs of the new device don't meet our expectations. It's difficult to compare iPhone 5s to other Android smartphones because you cannot compare this phone to other 4 inches Android smartphones as the price gap is huge. So yes, if you compare iPhone 5s with 4 inches phones, it's much better. But you can buy 2 or maybe 3 Android smartphones with 4 inches screen at the price of the new iPhone 5s. So it's better to compare it to premium smartphones. Of course, premium smartphones in Android have bigger screens, so it is again a bit complicated as Apple gives you no choice on the screen size like Android does. There are a lot of 4 inches Android smartphones at the price half of that an iPhone. Of course, iPhone 5s is overall better than all these 4 inches smartphones, but there are great Android phones on that side like Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini, which has a lot of great apps, or Samsung Galaxy X Cover 2. As you will notice, all Android smartphones with 4 inches screens have a 5 megapixel camera, except Huawei Honor 2 with 8 megapixel camera, and they have bigger batteries than iPhone 5s. Of course, they all have tiny prices, so you can get 2 or 3 of them for the price of a new iPhone 5s. So let's compare iPhone 5s to premium Android smartphones. Lately we have great smartphones with great specs, so iPhone 5s has difficulties in impressing us. Let's take a look at the specs compared to premium Android smartphones. The screen of iPhone 5s is just 4 inches with 326 pixels per inch. The size is good, but not for videos and games. There you need a bigger screen like 4.3 or 5 inches. If we compare iPhone 5s to premium smartphones, the device is far away from the top. There are a lot of phones with more than 350 pixels per inch. The best screen is found on HTC One with 469 ppi, followed by Huawei Ascend D2 with 443 ppi, and then there are 4 phones with 441 ppi. We're talking about smartphones with 4.7, 5.5 and 5.7 inches big screens that are really quality screens. Apple kept the main camera to 8 megapixels and the front camera is 1.2. Apple said that the sensor is larger and will allow more light to the shot. This is like the HTC technology on HTC One with the 4 megapixel camera. It didn't work there, it will not work on an iPhone 5s. There are some apps like slow motion video, live zoom, square photos, panorama and fillers that can be also found in Android phones. More or less, all Android smartphones have extra photo features. Today there are premium phones with 20.7 megapixel cameras like Sony Xperia Z1. There are more great Android camera phones with 13 megapixel cameras like Huawei Ascend D2, Samsung Galaxy S4, Sony Xperia Z or LG Optimus G Pro. So if you need a camera phone, check one of these great Android phones. It's true that iPhone 5s is the first phone with 64-bit processor. Okay, good. But is it faster than the octa-core Samsung Galaxy S4 or the octa-core Samsung Galaxy Note 3 with the 3GB of RAM? Apple said it is twice faster than the previous processor, so iPhone 5 had 1GB of RAM when Note has 3GB of RAM. Moreover, the 64-bit architecture is a nice idea but far from reality as there are no apps right now that can use it. It's good for hardcore gamers, but these guys play on PlayStations and not iPhones. You can find a lot of power phones with quad-core processors on the market like Samsung Galaxy Note 3, Samsung Galaxy S4, LG Optimus G Pro or Sony Xperia Z1, Z Ultra or HTC One. The list of quad-core Android smartphones is big, so you have the top speed at a big variety of devices. iPhones had always battery problems, and this model has a really small battery compared to the huge smartphone batteries on the market. iPhone 5s has a 1044 mAh battery when Huawei Ascend Mate has a 4050 mAh battery. Samsung Galaxy Note 3 has a 3200 mAh battery, and there are more than 9 phones with more than 3000 mAh batteries, so why choose a phone with less than half battery? Apple should invest more in the battery section as smartphone users need their phones powered the whole day, not just for a few hours. Premium smartphones have their own software, and you will find some useful apps on iPhone 5s as well as on Samsung, Sony, LG, even Huawei phones. The most interesting iPhone 5s feature is Touch ID. It's really interesting and it works. iPhone 5s is not the only phone with that technology, as previous attempts failed in Android phones. We want more security on our phones, we want the companies to help us find a stolen iPhone, but we don't want fingerprints detector on our device. iOS 7 made some improvements to move more like Android 4.4, and it has some apps for email, internet and sharing photos like all Android phones do. iPhone was always thin and the new model is slim. iPhone 5s is a 7.6mm wide and weighs 112 grams. There is just one Android smartphone that is slimmer, that is Sony Xperia Z Ultra with a body of 6.5mm, and there are some lighter Android smartphones at 4 inches like LG L5 II. iPhone 5s is thinner and lighter than premium Android smartphones, as it has a much smaller screen, so it's overall smaller. But the difference is not big. HTC One with 4.7 inch screen weighs 143 grams, but you will not understand the difference because the screen is much bigger, so the body size depends on the screen and the feeling. HTC One Mini has a 4.3 inch screen and weighs 122 grams, but you will not understand the difference with the lighter phone because of the beautiful and sleek design. So hold the phones on your hand and decide which one you want. iPhone 5s is one of the latest devices on the market, but not the only one. Sony Xperia Z1, Samsung Galaxy Note 3, HTC One Mini and Moto X were launched in the last 2 months, so if you want the newest phone on the market, you have many choices on Android market. iPhone 5s is not the revolutionary device it used to be. It's just a phone with some improvements, but you have no reason to buy it. The 64-bit architecture is not useful and it cannot be compared with the quad-core giants right now on the market. When the 64-bit technology will be useful, Apple will have launched iPhone 7 or 7s, so you have plenty of time to rethink. The Touch ID technology is an old idea that needed to be approved by the users to be considered successful, and the software options are good but not unique. You can find similar or better apps on Samsung and Sony devices. At the same time, the battery and the camera of iPhone 5s are not as good as the cameras and the batteries of Android power phones, and the 4-inch screen is too small for that big price. You can buy better Android phones with the money you need for an Android 5s, and Android phones give you many more options.